With it almost being 1 year since Better Call Saul's completion, it is unavoidable to remember the show that started it all, Breaking Bad. This television phenomenon shocked the world. Each season was a joyous ride, whether it was when we witnessed Tortuga's decapitated head with Hank, or when we saw Walter orchestrating a killing rampage against 10 prison inmates within a 2-minute window. Every episode was worthwhile and memorable. However, against the popular belief that Season 5 was the best Breaking Bad season, I'm here to argue that Season 4 was the true apotheosis of Breaking Bad. Whenever I think of Breaking Bad Season 4 and 5, I compare it with the first and second halves of Death Note. There's a strong case to be made that Light and Walter are similar in this regard. Before their threat is gone, Light and Walter are both on top of their game. They use logical and rational thinking to win. However, after they dispose of their threat, they both get cocky and confident, the same reason both characters meet their downfall. I'm sure we can all agree that the first half of Death Note was better than the second, and I believe that this also remains the same for Breaking Bad Season 4 and 5. Breaking Bad Season 4 is greater than Season 5 because of Season 4's increased consistency and quality, the ability for Season 4's story to keep its momentum from Season 3, and Season 5's lack of fluidity and almost forced writing, as well as the greater threat and menace that Season 4's villains posed over Season 5's. The narrative and tension in Season 4 are much more natural and consistent than in Season 5. To back this up, Season 4 starts with the climax of Season 3 and keep its momentum throughout the entire season, eventually climaxing even further. However, for Season 5, the story must build itself back up together before it can do so, making the continuation of the story almost feel forced. It felt forced because if Breaking Bad had ended at Season 4, that would have been sufficient. Season 4 ended most of the narrative threads. The story's main antagonist, Gus, is dead. Hank thinks that Gus was Heisenberg. Walter's relationships with Jesse and Skyler are for the most part repaired, and any evidence that could incriminate Walter had been destroyed. This would have been Walter's happy ending. However, Season 5 began because Walter had forgotten to destroy Gus's laptop. Although this is a legitimate problem, I viewed it as more of an excuse to continue Breaking Bad's narrative, since the laptop was the only remaining piece of incriminating evidence. Adding on to that point, the addition of characters such as Lydia into the Breaking Bad narrative seemed patchy and unnatural. Characters in the previous seasons were slowly introduced episode by episode, but Season 5 threw its characters right into the mix with barely any introduction at all. Simply put, Breaking Bad Season 5 felt like it was a fan fiction written by pretty talented writers who could not get over the fact that Breaking Bad had ended. All in all, the narrative of Season 4 was much more natural, coherent, and higher in quality than in Season 5. The main antagonist of Season 4 is much more menacing and interesting than the antagonists of Season 5. This doesn't even need a comparison. Across all of television, in fact, Gus Fring is considered as one of, if not the most intimidating villain of all time. He manifested sociopathic behavior as he frequently manipulated others, had comprehensible motives, and always maintained a measure of professionalism. A prime example of Gus's sociopathic behavior was the way he manipulated Jesse. Gus understood that Walter needed Jesse, and to hurt Walter, Gus made Jesse loyal to him over Walter. He did this by inducing confidence in Jesse by taking Jesse to Mexico instead of Walter, which made Jesse believe that he was an equal to Walter. Also, Jesse had begun to believe that Gus had faith in his meth cooking abilities. This gave Jesse a wide and large appreciation for Gus. Adding on to that, Jesse's batch with the cartel during the celebration, Gus poisoned the higher-ups in the cartel and himself, which is in itself an example of sociopathic behavior. However, in the process, Gus had entrusted his life to Jesse, which caused Jesse to find something more than appreciation for Gus. Jesse found loyalty for him. Also, Gus Fring's motivations were understandable and rational. During the episode Hermanos, Fring's spite and hatred towards Hector Salamanca bled onto the screen when we see Maxim get murdered. After that episode, I had such a strong resentment towards Hector. It was unhealthy. However, it was necessary since it fleshed out Gus as a character and helped me understand Gus's motives. Yet villains that showed up in the following season were average in comparison and only acted by greed and materialism. Moreover, Gus Fring's professionalism made him an interesting and somewhat likable character as well. Nobody who had met Gus had the impression of a criminal. Gus was always well respected, which squashed any suspicions against him as seen in Season 4 with Hank. Therefore, although Season 5 produced some of the most climactic moments in television history, Season 4 takes the title as the best Breaking Bad season because of its fluid and coherent narrative, the unforced and natural writing, and the menace and threat of Gus Fring. Thank you for watching. If anyone has any recommendations for future videos or any constructive criticism for this video, please inform me in the comments. Enjoy your day.